Imagine this, Christmas, 1944. The Allied forces think the war in Europe is nearly over. They're exhausted, but optimistic. Suddenly, out of the dense, snow-covered Ardennes forest, a massive German force strikes. This wasn't just an attack, it was Hitler's last, desperate gamble to turn the tide of World War II. This is the story of the Battle of the Bulge, one of the largest and bloodiest battles fought by the United States in the war. Let's set the scene. By late 1944, the Allies had successfully landed in Normandy, liberated Paris, and were pushing deep into enemy territory, right up to Germany's border. The mood was confident. Many believed the war would be over by Christmas. But on the German side, Adolf Hitler was planning something audacious. He believed he could split the Allied armies, recapture the vital port of Antwerp, and force the Western Allies to sue for peace. This would allow him to focus all his might on the Soviet Union in the east. His plan was called Wacht am Rhein, or Watch on the Rhine. The target: a quiet, 80-mile stretch of the front line in the Ardennes, a region of thick forests, deep ravines, and rolling hills spanning parts of Belgium, Luxembourg, and France. The Allies considered it a ghost front, unsuitable for a major offensive, and it was held by a thin line of inexperienced or battle-weary American troops. This was exactly what Hitler was counting on. In the pre-dawn hours of December 16th, under the cover of thick fog and freezing rain, the silence was shattered. Over 250,000 German soldiers, spearheaded by elite panzer divisions, smashed into the American lines. The sheer force and surprise of the attack were overwhelming. German artillery rained down, cutting communication lines and causing chaos. The American soldiers, completely caught off guard, were outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting in brutal winter conditions. In the initial days, the German offensive was terrifyingly successful. They punched a massive salient, or bulge, into the Allied front line, which is how the battle got its famous name. You can see on this map how the German advance pushed the American lines westward, creating this distinct shape. The situation was desperate. Entire American divisions were encircled or forced into a chaotic retreat. The Germans also employed special tactics, like Operation Grief, where English-speaking German commandos in American uniforms and jeeps spread confusion behind enemy lines, switching road signs and cutting telegraph wires. One of the most critical points in this early phase was the town of St. Vath. Here, American forces, though fragmented and under constant pressure, mounted a stubborn defense. Their heroic stand significantly delayed the German timetable, buying precious time for the Allies to regroup. Another legendary stand took place at the crucial road hub of Bastogne. Bastogne was a vital crossroads. If the Germans could capture it, their panzer divisions would have a clear path to the Meuse River, and then on to Antwerp. The town was completely surrounded, defended by the paratroopers of the 101st Airborne Division, along with elements of the 10th Armored Division. The weather was horrific, preventing any air support or resupply. The defenders were low on ammunition, medical supplies, and food, all while enduring constant German attacks and shelling in sub-zero temperatures. On December 22nd, the German commander sent a message to the American commander in Bastogne, Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe, demanding their surrender. McAuliffe's now famous, one-word reply was simply, "Nuts." This single word perfectly captured the defiant, unbreakable spirit of the American soldiers. It became a rallying cry for the defenders and a symbol of American resolve throughout the battle. The Siege of Bastogne would become one of the most iconic episodes of the entire war. While the soldiers on the ground fought for their lives, the Allied High Command was scrambling to respond. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, the Supreme Allied Commander, quickly realized the gravity of the situation. He made a bold decision: halt all Allied offensives elsewhere and rush every available reserve to the Ardennes. He famously said, The present situation is to be regarded as one of opportunity for us and not of disaster. There will be only cheerful faces at this headquarters. He placed the legendary General George S. Patton and his Third Army, then further south, under orders to pivot and race north to relieve the besieged forces at Bastogne. Patton's response was incredible. He told his staff they would attack in 3 days. When his officers protested that it was impossible, he simply got it done. In one of the most remarkable logistical feats of the war, Patton's Third Army disengaged from its previous front, turned 90 degrees, and marched over 100 miles through ice and snow in just a few days. A crucial turning point came on December 23rd. The skies, which had been soaked in with fog and clouds for a week, finally cleared. The weather had changed, and with it, the tide of the battle. The mighty Allied air forces, which had been grounded, were unleashed. Waves of fighter bombers and transport planes filled the sky. They hammered the German armored columns, which were now exposed on the snowy roads, and airdropped desperately needed supplies to the defenders of Bastogne. The tables were beginning to turn. On December 26, the day after Christmas, the lead elements of Patton's 4th Armored Division finally broke through the German lines and reached Bastogne, lifting the siege. The link-up was a massive morale boost for the Allies. While the battle was far from over, the German offensive had lost its critical momentum. Their spearheads had run out of fuel. Their supply lines were stretched to the breaking point, and they were now facing a massive, coordinated Allied counterattack from both the north and the south. The fighting that followed in January 1945 was brutal and attritional. The goal now for the Allies was to systematically pinch off the Bulge. Soldiers fought house to house in frozen villages and battled in the dense, snow-choked forests. The conditions were just as deadly as the enemy. Frostbite and trench foot were rampant, claiming thousands of casualties. It was a miserable, grinding fight to push the Germans back to their starting line. By the end of January, the Battle of the Bulge was officially over. The Allies had restored their original front line. The cost, however, was immense. The United States suffered over 80,000 casualties, including about 19,000 killed, making it the costliest battle in American history. The British also suffered significant casualties, and the German losses were catastrophic, estimated to be up to 100,000 killed, wounded, or captured. Hitler's last gamble had failed spectacularly. He had thrown his last best reserves, his finest remaining troops and panzer divisions into the Ardennes Offensive, and lost them all. The Luftwaffe was shattered. Germany no longer had the resources or the manpower to launch another major offensive on the Western Front. The battle had effectively broken the back of the German army. The path to victory was now clear. After the Bulge, the Allied forces crossed the Rhine River in March and pushed into the heart of Germany. Just a few months later, in May 1945, the war in Europe came to an end. The Battle of the Bulge stands as a powerful testament to the resilience, courage, and sacrifice of the Allied soldiers who faced overwhelming odds in the dead of winter and refused to break. They turned a moment of potential disaster into a decisive victory, shortening the war and saving countless lives. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story of courage and history compelling, please hit the subscribe and that like button for more deep dives into pivotal moments of the past. Let us know in the comments which battle you'd like us to cover next. See you in the next video.